Hello to everyone. Hello to everyone. I am Samuel, Assistant Professor, Department of Computer Science, and I am handling computer architecture and organization. You've already seen a series of video on memory module. Actually, the there are three components of the computer, or you can say the blueprint of a computer: the memory module or the memory component. Next one is the I/O module, the I/O component, and the CPU. So in the first two units, we have seen about the basics of a computer architecture and organization, and also we have seen about the module or the one we, we have seen about the memory component. Today, we are going to see about, or in this unit 3, which is constructed by the syllabus um, by the University of Madras. Unit 3 is basically of, so we are going to see IO module, that is the input and output module. So what is an input and output module? Here you can see an example. The input module, the whatever information, the data we are inserting to the computer, or we are giving we are using a keyboard or mouse or something like that, we are inserting input to the to the system is called as an input. And what are the things, the output from the computer? For example, if we have a printer, we are taking a document, and we want in hard copy, so you need to take a printout. So we can say whatever the peripheral devices, the external devices that are attached to a computer that gives you the desired output of the user are called as an output. Now let's just move on to the external devices. And what is meant by external devices? External devices means the devices which are externally attached to a computer. For example, we can take an example of a printer or a pen drive, or for that matter a compact disc, or like that, anything. So external devices are peripheral devices which are attached to that computer. We have already seen about the internal memory and the external memory. Internal memory, which is inside the computer, which is a permanent memory. External memory which is a secondary memory, which is not a permanent memory, it is a temporary storage device. Okay, so today we are going to see what is an external device. External device, you can divide them into three groups: human readable, screen, the printer, keyboards. These are all human readable. Human can read with it. The screen, the monitor that gives you the display, the printer, you can type the hard copy, and with the help of the keyboard, we can give the commands to the computer. So these are all human readable. So you can say these are all external devices. And another component or another type of external devices, we can the second part is mission readable. The monitoring and control, the control and monitoring of the devices are called as mission readable. You can say monitoring and controls. Next one is the communication. If you need the internet connection, or you need the graphics card, you need an interface card, you need a network interface card. These are all called as communication external devices. This is about external device. Now we very quickly will move on to the external device block diagram. How the block diagram of an external or a logical part of that. The external device consists of a control logic, which determines what comes in and what has to goes out. What is the input and what is the output? When a signal comes, it translates what the user needs or what the input, and it gives the output what the user needs or what the user requests. The buffer helps the transferring of data from uh, from the IO module to the other components, whereas the transducer which converts the electrical energy to magnetic energy or magnetic pulses in order to have a environment, a device unique environment. It provides a device unique environment. This is about external devices. Now we will see, yes, the input and output. The input and output. Without the input and output module, the usage of computer is is nothing. So without that, we will not be able to get the desired calculation or the the input and output with the user needs. So what are the issues we will face in the input and output module? the main issue is that it has a wide variety of peripherals. There are a lot of external devices, a lot of input and output devices available in the market for delivering different amounts of data. If it is a larger number of data, we can attach an external hard device and at different speeds also. And even for buying a pen drive, even for using a pen drive, we must look at the classes: class A, class B, class G, or class 10, class 3. So like that, and also in different formats. For audio recording, we can use a CD recording. So there we have a wide variety of peripherals. That is the main issue of this input and output module or input and output component. And also it slows the CPU and the RAM. Since we are using external devices, a lot of peripheral devices, it might slow the performance of the CPU and the RAM. And you need a lot of input and output modules, because since we are using a lot of peripheral devices, you need a lot of I/O modules. So what is the function of this, or what is the module of this input and output? Is this, it acts as an interface between the CPU and the memory. It acts as an interface. It acts as an intermediate between the CPU and memory for transferring the data and also processing data. And also it acts as an interface to one or more peripherals. If you are using more than one external device, if you are using more than one peripheral device, you need an interface to communicate with each other. So the input and output module act as an interface also. The next one is the generic model view, or you can say the block diagram of an I/O module. This is a block diagram of an I/O module, where in the center we have the I/O module. It acts as an interface between the system bus and the peripheral device. So the address line, the data bus, the control lines are called as system bus. These are on one side and the peripheral devices on the other side. So the I/O module translates what is the input and what is the output, what the other components needed. So it is helpful in acting as a bridge between the system and the peripheral devices which are going to be connected. The next one is, what is the function of this I/O module? The main function of this I/O module is to control the flow of data, the input and output, and also depends upon the timing. And also it communicates with the CPU, what kind of data to be transferred and what kind of data to be processed. So it helps to translate. So it it has a CPU communication, also device communication. If more than one peripheral devices, external devices are there, it needs to, it not only act as intermediate, it helps to connect and transfer the data. And data buffering is there, and also it does error correction if there is any duplication, if there is any disk failure. It helps us to recover those data. And next one is, what are the steps in I/O module? Very important. The CPU checks the I/O module device status. First, the central processing unit checks what is the status of the I/O module device, whether it is doing some other work or it is in free. If it is, the I/O module returns the status to the CPU. It is ready. If ready, the CPU requests the data transfer. If the requested I/O module is ready, the CPU requests the data transfer to be processed so that the CPU can execute the instruction. The I/O module gets the data from the device. For example, it gets the data from the pen drive, and the I/O module transfers that data to the CPU. So we have various techniques in these I/O modules. We have actually 3 techniques available. What are those? We will see. Before that, we will see the I/O module. This is the I/O module diagram, where it has the data instructions and status and control registers. Like that, we have a data lines. So whatever the data is fetched from the external device, the data lines or the data registers used to fetch those data from the external device and stores that. And the control and status register will tell you what is the status, what kind of data are stored in the data registers. The I/O logic determines what is the where is the data and what is the data, what it has to do. If it is arithmetic and logic unit, it will transfer those data to the CPU. Yes, we have to do this process arithmetic, and it has external device interface logic. We have the external device interface logic, we have these control lines, we have the address lines. So this is the I/O module block diagram. Next we will move on. What are the input and output techniques? There are 3 input and output techniques. The first one is programmed, which is depends upon the programmed IO and interrupt driven IO are depends on CPU, whereas the direct memory access, the word tells you the direct, it doesn't depends upon, doesn't need the processor or the CPU. It acts as a surrogate processor. So we will briefly see about these three techniques. The first one is the programmed IO. What is a programmed IO? The CPU has a direct control over this IO. The CPU has direct control of this programmed IO. Programmed IO, it has already been programmed. Everything has been set. The first one is it sends the data, read and write, it issues read and write commands and transfers the data. The only issue in the programmed IO, even though it is the direct control of the CPU has to wait for the IO module to complete an operation. If the programmed IO is doing some kind of operation, some kind of data transfer, the CPU has to wait. It will not interrupt. It will not interrupt the programmed IO. So that wastes the CPU time. So what is the operation of the programmed IO? The CPU requests the IO operation. The CPU requests the programmed IO. The IO module performs the operation. The IO module sets the status. So likewise, the same thing. The only thing is the IO module does not inform the CPU directly. It will not inform the CPU directly that it has finished the operation. The CPU has to get the CPU has to wait till the operation is over, then only it can it can check the status of the system. And another disadvantage is CPU module does not interrupt the CPU. It will not interrupt the CPU and information. If the CPU does some other work, this programmed IO module will not interrupt the CPU, and it will not acknowledge, or it will not inform the CPU. So the CPU has to wait till it finished. If the programmed IO is doing some operation, the CPU has to wait. So there is a lot of time wastages in this programmed IO. So what we'll do, we will move on to the second one, the interrupt driven, where it overcomes the CPU waiting. The CPU will not wait, or the interrupt driven will issue an interrupt signal even though the CPU does or it is in the in it is doing some other work. So there is no repeating checking of the CPU. CPU will there is no option, or there is no need of CPU checking, because they already, the interrupt driven IO will interrupt the CPU and it will inform the status of the system. The IO will interrupt when it is ready. So what is the operation? Basic operation. The CPU issues a read command to the interrupt-driven IO. The IO module gets data from the peripheral device. Even the CPU does the other work. When the IO module finish those, or it after it is getting the data from the peripheral device, it will not wait for the CPU to finish his work. It finish its work. It will directly interrupt the CPU, and it will tell that it has got the data, and then the CPU requests the data and the whole process completed. So this is the interrupt driven IO. So in the programmed IO and the interrupt driven IO, the CPU is always intervening in the process, or the CPU is directly involved in the operation of those IOs, whereas because of that, the transfer rate is limited and the CPU is always tied up with this interrupt-driven IO and the programmed IO. The best answer is DMA, which is direct memory access. What is this? Direct memory access. Direct memory access will act as a surrogate processor, or a duplicate processor. It will act as a processor. It will not depend upon the processor. Sorry. What is the function of the DMA? It has additional module on the bus. It has additional module on the bus, so that it acts as a separate processor. The DMA control takes over from the CPU for the IO. Instead of the IO, or instead of the CPU taking control of the interrupt and IO, the input and output module, the DMA takes over the CPU. So the whole control is in with the CPU. Now let's see what is the block diagram. This is the block diagram of the DMA, which has the interrupt signals. It has the control registers. It consists of all the necessary components which a processor needs. Now we will see what is the operation. The CPU tells the DMA controller that there is a need to read and write data. There is a need to transferring the data. So the CPU carries on with this other work. The DMA controller will take the control of the processor, or you can say it will act as a CPU to finish off those read and write data, transferring of the data. It is not depending upon the CPU. For example, you can take an example here: a processor there, a DMA is there, a IO is there. So the DMA uh, acts as a separate processor. Here, you can take an example here. A single bus is there. It has a detached DMA controller where the transfer of information from the IO to the DMA, then the DMA to the memory. It doesn't need the CPU to transfer the data to process any kind of data. Here, the DMA does what the processor does. So the DMA acts as a surrogate processor. Another configuration is that here you can say a single bus is there, but multiple DMAs. So it doesn't depend upon the CPU. In another configuration is also there. So the main advantage of DMA, it acts as a separate processor, whereas the IO and the programmed IO always depends upon the CPU. Thank you, and hope you would understand about the IO module. We will see the next video. Thank you so much.